Hi everyone, it's Kitty with Kitty's TerranArt again. Today I'm going to go over the principles of design, or also called the principles of composition. Uh, I did a bunch of hunting and I have found that it seems to vary between source. So I stuck with the one that I seem to think fits most. And with that, I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible because I'd really like to get off the boring stuff. And I know you guys really want to get drawing, but this is very important stuff that you guys really need to understand. So without further ado, let's get to it. I'm going to first go over the definitions, and then I'll show you some little flashcards I made. Again, cheesy artwork, but it's just to get the point across. Okay, so the first one is unity. Unity is you have to make sure everything fits together. And with unity, it also means that all of the other principles of design work together to make a cohesive design and solution. Now, if you are trying to make it feel kind of not unified on purpose, then that's acceptable. It's art. You're allowed to do that. But the overall goal is to achieve unity in most designs. Most people won't actually go into full design process and thinking it out. They just draw. But they can actually go back afterwards and pick out the actual elements and design principles that they've used. You don't have to use all of them when it comes to the elements, but you need to consider at least using multiple, if not all, of the principles, because it makes a good composition if you are able to incorporate them. So, not to mention unified. So the next definition we're going to talk about is balance. Does one side seem to have more going on in it than the other one? Does one side seem to have too big of items versus the other side seeming really small and less detail? You can achieve imbalance on purpose again, but the lack of balance can make people uneasy when staring at your artwork. And if that's what you're going for, then hey, that's awesome, that works. That's what you're wanting, then go for it. To each their own, it's their own art. But if you're actually trying to create a good piece of composition, you want them to feel comfortable with it, you want to apply balance. You can't have one side being overly colorful or overly detailed or overly cluttered versus the other side, vice versa. So you have to keep that in mind if you're actually trying to plan out, or even while you're drawing, mentally plan out, okay, well, I've got a bunch of trees here, I got a big old space up here, I still got to fill. What can I put there that won't make it seem like my picture is going, So the next one is movement. You can actually do this with just how people trace their eyes through the page, from form to form or subject matter to subject matter, or you can have it literal. Like if it is like a design, like a graphic design, you have arrows pointing. Hey, go this way. No, no, no. Now goes this way. No, we're going to go this way instead. You can have it do it that way. Sense of movement makes it to where not any piece of your artwork is forgotten and not seen. Movement allows it for the human eye to trace through the art piece so it sees everything besides just trying to take it in all at once, the movement makes the eye follow through a path of subjects to make it more interesting for the eye. The next one I want to consider is rhythm. Rhythm is much the same way as music does. A piece of art can have a rhythm or an underlying beat or method where on how fast the eye goes from one spot to another spot to another spot. Like look for underlying, for example, they have look for the large underlying shapes, squares, triangles, etc., and repeated colors. That's one way you can produce rhythm. You can do it on purpose, like you actually put a rhythmic pattern into the picture, or you can just have it as something visual, like there's a lot of circles composing the picture and triangles or something else like that, so that the eye gets, oh hey, this is like a music sheet. It's telling me what note my eye should play. Look, there's an actual rhythm going here. Smooth and elegant, sharp and pointy, smooth and elegant, sharp and pointy, kind of something like that. And then next thing that I'm going to address, it's called by multiple different terms. It's listed here as focus or emphasis, but it can also be known as the point of interest, point of focus, point of emphasis. It's what originally attracts the viewer's eye, what you want them to be like, whoa, this is the most important part of the drawing, the artwork. Because otherwise, if there's no points of interest for the eye to go to, it just kind of looks at the whole drawing like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? I mean, I see it, but there's nothing really interesting about this. It all looks blah. So it's always good to have something interesting in it. A common ruling that's used for this is called the rule of thirds. It's when you take your whole drawing and you divide it into thirds, going vertical and horizontal. And the object for rule of thirds is the most interesting pieces on your artwork is either going to be in that center square or at one of the intersections of those thirds. That's where the most interesting things are going to be, because the eye has this nice little knack of immediately going for either the center or those little intersections instinctively. You may not have done it, like dissected it into those rule of thirds, but your eyes automatically do it. That's just how they work. And so it's been proven that if you use this rule of thirds method and put your points of interest there, it's easier for your eye to find. And it seems to emphasize your point of interest. But if you don't use this, there's still other ways of using points of interest. You can use color, size, oh heck, you can use any number of the elements of art to create a point of focus, something that's more interesting. Like say you have a graphic design of all circles, various size circles interlinking here and there, really cool designs, it's really awesome. But then you decide to, in a couple places, throw in a triangle. Your eye is going to be like, whoa, wait, that's something wow, I didn't see that coming. Okay. So it's going to be a natural focal point because it's different. And that leads me into contrast. Contrast, paintings with like high contrast, it says, have a strong difference between their light and darks. You can use values, intensity to create high contrast. But you can also use shape, size, texture, and even types of lines to create different contrasts. If you watched my first video, I was talking about line weight. For a specific point of the body you want really someone's focus to, you can put a heavier line there. Or there's more weight being put on one side of the body. You can draw that side with heavier lines versus the other side of the body. You can use any of the elements to actually create focus, contrast, emphasis. It doesn't matter. Heck, you can even use them for rhythm and whatnot too. The next thing I'm going to go over is pattern. Now, pattern can be similar to rhythm, but pattern is when you really see a regular rhythm of whether lines you've used, shapes you've used, colors you've used, values, luminosity, or not luminosity, it's intensity, sorry. Why am I thinking of luminosity? I'm not sure. But anyway, intensity. And you can use any of these to create a literal pattern that is easy to spot, like line, line, long line, long line, long line, short line, long line, long line, short line, short line. You can do something like that. Or you can do something a little more unique and say, I've got this half of the page that's mostly circles. Then in the center, I've got mostly squares and mostly triangles on the other side. But you have each shape involved in each of the other categories. But you can tell that you have a pattern of, oh, this is mostly circles, this is mostly squares, this is mostly triangles. Even though there's other of these incorporated in these sides, it's still your brain catches, hey, there's a pattern. For example, you ever seen like a little chain? Okay, so little chain links. Okay, chain links hooked together, kind of like that, Well, in between all these little circles and stuff, you might actually have a chain of circles that eventually hooks to a chain of squares, that eventually hooks to the triangles, and then hooks back to the squares. And you could actually do like an infinity in that design. And your brain would pick it up. It'd first pick up on the common pattern of, oh, well, certain sections have certain things. But then it's going to realize, hey, you have things linked, which is linking your movement back into the picture. So then it's sending it to each section too. So you have unity going here now. You see what's going on here? See, each one of these principles and elements can build off of each other to make one whole unified piece. The last one I want to touch on is proportion. Yes, you hear proportion when it comes to the human body. Very important when you're talking about anything animate, anything living. They have proportions. The leaf foliage on the top of a tree is typically bigger than the trunk, the big old trunk of the tree, because, it branches out, Then, the human body, my hand, if I draw my hand the same, bigger than my face, that's a little weird. And it's going to look wrong. It's going to look off. You want to make sure everything in your picture is the right size. Because if you're drawing your human bigger than the pine tree, what is your human? He a giant? Or is he supposed to be a human? Then human shouldn't be over half the size of that pine tree, unless it's a dwarf pine tree. And if that's the case, then that pine tree is probably under 6 foot tall. The rule of thumb with like general proportions with humans is take the size of the head. The average full-grown male has a certain number of heads. Same with females. Same with kids. It all goes to their head size. The width of their face, their head. Typically, it's about 2.5 to 3 heads wide from shoulder to shoulder. That's on average. That's smaller, of course, for kids. So you have to really look into what proper proportions. If you have to, there's an old way that in school, and I know it's known, there's a way of actually measuring proportion using your pencil. Okay, well, mine's a pen. But, okay, say I'm looking at this bottle. And I'm looking at that little wall plaque over there. Okay, so what you do is you hold this out at arm's reach and you use your thumb. And you kind of look at this and you're like, okay, well, the cap's yay big according to my thumb. But yet the plaque, if I'm looking at it, it's yay big. Okay? And then you can kind of, if you're trying to draw it to exact size to what you're seeing it, you better have a big piece of paper. So what you often have to do is do some configurations. So that little plaque seems to be this big at the distance, okay? So I'm going to put it to half its size, make it fit better on my paper. So that lid that was this size, I got to make it half that size too, because I got to make sure that bottle lid is not bigger than that plaque on that wall, because there is no way that bottle lid is bigger than that plaque on that wall. So it all falls down to finding your exact proportions. We'll go to my flashcards here real quick, give you kind of examples. This is really lousy. I'm not sure if I actually achieved full unity on this one, but if you see, if you start here and you kind of go down, you do the little swirl, here's the movement, it's going and going up, but look, it bounces it back. But it can also, when it bounces back, it can hook back this way. Oh, now I'm over here. I go down, I hook to this, and then this sends me back down to here. I can swirl up and up. Hey, look. If I dissect this, let me grab a marker. Okay, we're doing process red here, people. If I take this marker here and I divide this into thirds, I'm kind of drawing upside down, so I'm not doing very straight lines right now. But you can kind of get the idea. Look, oh, hey, look. This one's close to that point a third. That, with it being one of the bigger items, and the fact that it's not as curvy, but it's got points, unlike these other items, that's your point of interest. So you've got movement, rhythm, because look, you got all these curves. There's your rhythm. Your pattern is the curves as well. And the fact that it goes bounce, 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 bounce. So the bouncing of how your eye traces around this actually says to its pattern and the proportions. This one is slightly bigger, but the balance is still there. Because if I divided this in half, this side is not heavier than this side. Actually, I think this side is a little lighter than this one. I think I went heavy on that one. So, but if I drew like a couple more things like here, and maybe here, you know, just kind of, to kind of make it, you know, then it might balance out. But, so my balance is a little off, which can create a little unease in this. But the other ones are there. Now, contrast isn't there in value or intensity. I almost did it again. But it is in the shapes. This whole drawing is mostly curves. but that's sharp and pointies. Look, the sharp and pointies. It curves in, yes, but there's sharp and pointies in there. So that's your contrast right there. So this drawing overall only has one problem wrong with it. It's balance. Like I said, easy fix. I could come back here and add a few things here, like maybe there or here, because I don't want to put it in these points of interest, because then it would distract from right here, this point of interest right here. And I don't want to do that, because that is where I wanted my point of interest. So if I would have fixed that right there, this would have been a fully unified picture. My next one, balance. Okay, this one I just went really easy. Circle, 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 or circle, circle, triangle, triangle. Approximately same size. I know they're not the exact size, but I was quick drawing. But this, on the other hand, look, this side you can tell is really heavy. You got two regular size, and then you got a big one and a tiny one, and tiny one, kind of tiny one, and this one's kind of leaning over this way. And so the only thing's really, if I drew a line up this center here, this side would be really heavy, a lot heavier than over here. This kind of makes you feel uneasy staring at it. Mentally, you're just like, whoa, something's wrong with this. I can't figure it out unless you're a trained artist and you have the eye for it. You're like, I can't figure it out, but there's something wrong with that. It makes me really kind of uncomfortable. This one is like, oh, hey, look, I can put some, like, hey, look, I can do like a little cheesy guy, kind of like cool spot type. Ooh, smiles. That one makes you smile. This one makes you smile because it's balanced. It makes you comfortable. You want to go hang out with this one, not this one. Unless you're purposely trying to make the drawing uneasy, like graveyard scene, like spooky graveyard scene, then you might want to use a little of imbalance to help you out, because that could still make it a little uneasy to look at it. Now this one, I had a lot of different movement in here. I used a perspective because perspective kind of uses the easiest form of movement to track. So we got this, stream down here. You got the trees feeding to the back towards these small mountain range back here, the sun, the top mountain peak, and then you can go down this side of the mountain peak to this little rocky boulders, up to the house, and the little walkway leads you back to the stream, and then you can go back up, and it just keeps you going in a circle. There's your movement. It's a little ellipse. That's the movement. It's how your eye picks it up and goes with it. Now, you might have started with the mountain because it's so big, and look, it's on one of those points of interest again, right there, right? So you'd start here and be like, oh, wow, this is so cool, and then, oh, look, look, the cloud's sending me towards the trees. Oh, trees, oh, we're going to go back up the mountain, back down, and we're still doing some sort of circle. Each person's eye will go a different way, depending on what point of interest, whether it was the stream down here, the treetops here, the mountain, the house with the boulders. Depending on where in the picture it picks up a point of interest that intrigues it the most out of all the points of interest, because it looks like I accidentally created a couple in there. Depends on where it will start. Okay, so rhythm. Okay, this one I went with kind of literally on this top example here, the bigger one. Little, big circle, little circle, big circle, little circle, small squares, big square, small squares, big circles, little one, little one. And the pattern would start over. And the same went down here. Slash, dash, opposite, slash, dash, opposite, slash, dash. And it would keep repeating that. So you can have a literal rhythmic pattern like that. And look, I even did a rhythm with the colors. All the big items were blue. The little circles stayed in orange. The little green ones were little squares green. Green, blue, green, blue, green, blue. So look, I had multiple rhythms in this. And rhythm and pattern can kind of coincide, but it's how your eye kind of goes through it, like da 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 da. It's the basic rhythm. Like, okay, then go down here to simply. Okay, I'm going to kind of trace over it. I'm going to try to trace over it in my hand here. Well, we're going to try to do this upside down. And I'm going to scoot a little closer to try to get a good view at this. We're going to... Okay, so I'm going to go the pace. Okay, a couple times I'm going off. So you see on the downs I was going a little faster, on the ups I was going a little slower. So that's the rhythm. Down, up. So it's down quick, up slow, down quick, up slow. That's the visual rhythm. Cursive is full of visual rhythm. So that's rhythm in a nutshell. Pattern, you can have it, like I said, literal, circle, little circle, circle, little circle. Or you can go, here's that example I brought up earlier. This whole picture, the pattern is, it's made with 99% triangles and squares. You can break this waterfall down into squares. The only thing that's squiggly is that little smoke right there. Sidewalk squares, these little cargo stuff over here, squares. Triangles on the peak, triangle on the snow coverage, square, square. Look, look, coming off the waterfall where there's land, square, triangle, triangle. Look, upside down triangle, upside down triangle. Look, look, look. And then look, the actual, right down in here is actually a square too. So there's a pattern as well. You can use that as a pattern method too of how you create it. Okay, here's that point of interest. Again, cheesy little drawing. Get the mountains background. They're right there near that point of interest. You can consider these mountains as a point of interest, or since that lake right here is in that middle square, that is going to be the most dominant point of interest, but then it'll shoot up to here, which will then turn over to here, where this tree is going to be a point of interest, and it's going to come down following this, and then the house is a point of interest sheerly because of its size and the fact that it's silhouetted, whereas nothing else is. Everything else has some sort of design or whatnot. The house is silhouetted, so that's also a point of interest because I used contrast in that point. Now, the ways to achieve these points of interest, like I said, is on one of these points of these little T intersections here of the points of thirds. I circled them there, or that center square where that lake is right there. Those are the two most common ways, but like as I showed you there, I made this house a point of interest by using contrast. So those aren't the only ways, but this is a common way of doing it. And contrast. I did an overall just really cheesy pattern, smooth, squarey, smooth, squarey. And then the contrast was the jaggeds. Jagged, jagged. But I didn't just stop there to add contrast. I made these a lot brighter. These are all really darker colors, a dark blue, dark green, a darker yellow. And then I went with a brighter, like chartreuse green for both of these to add contrast, which adds interest to your drawing. So there's contrast. Proportion. Here we go. I just did a little still life of a teapot with a coffee mug that says, I love tea, little sugar bowl, little creamer bowl. You know, the sugar bowl is obviously going to be smaller than the cup, and the teapot, and the creamer bowl is going to be a little smaller than the sugar bowl because sugar cubes are kind of bulky, so you got to have a lot of room for those. And your coffee mug obviously is going to be smaller than that teapot because if your teapot's bigger, you're not going to have enough tea. So that is real to life proportion right there. So I hope that explains the principles of design better. And if you have any questions, I'm also going to post the links to the 2 sites that I used most, helping me remember the principles. I couldn't remember if there was 6 or 8, so that's why I'm posting 2. So go ahead and look at those sites. They have some examples better than my little cheesy drawings that I was just trying to do to get this video done for you guys, because I know I just wanted to touch on them so that you knew if I brought them up in the future about why I was drawing something a particular way, or why I was starting in a specific spot versus another for a drawing. You kind of got the idea of what I was doing. I know these are the boring parts of this, but I'm hoping this is one of the last boring ones. I may have 1 or 2 more boring ones. I think I'll do one on line weight, and maybe either in the same video or in a different one, depending on how long they go, because I don't want to keep doing these really long videos on you guys. How to proper ways you can hold the pencil to help you with your drawing. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Like, share, comments of course are always welcome. If you liked it, then please do share. If you think somebody else would like it that you know, go ahead, tag them. It's all good with me. And I will see you guys again in my next video. Bye!